Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am so excited to be joined by Ivanna Sakhno, who is a Ukrainian US-based actress and activist who's also known for her roles as Cadet Victoria in the science fiction film Pacific Film Rising. She's also got a starring role in Ashoka, and more recently, she plays Amelia in M3GAN 2.0, which is now out on VOD, and you can pick up a physical media copy in September. But Ivana, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'm just going to dive right into my first question. The first is, you've had a chance to play a couple of villains before with your role as Shinhati and Ahsoka, and now, of course, Amelia. What kind of preparation do you undergo to kind of get into the headspace of a villain?
I mean, it depends on the villain itself. I mean, the preparation, they're all different. Specifically with Amelia, a lot of it had to do with understanding her stillness, if we're talking about physicality, right? Because kind of the character's Bible, when you read the script, you have the details that you need to know in order to continue discovering them psychologically. But with Amelia, it was a lot of kind of just working with a movement coach and allowing myself to discover the stillness of her, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that does. I mean, it's interesting because usually when you prepare for a role, you're preparing to play kind of a person, right? In this case, you're preparing to play an AI who is kind of got semblances of a person. But did that make it any different for you as far as kind of the work you did to prepare for the role in regards to like, okay, I know I'm not playing a person, I'm playing kind of a facsimile of a person. How does that change my performance and the things I need to do to practice?
Yeah, I definitely had that in mind only when working on her physicality and just her physical language. When it came to understanding her internally, I never thought of her as a non-human being. I rather just um, try to look from her perspective. What it would feel like to suddenly gain consciousness and understand the trauma that she has gone through. Um, so if it makes sense, yeah, definitely the her AI aspect was only kind of helpful in creating her body language.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? She's supposed to be kind of all intelligent, all knowing, and as such, kind of presenting as a person. So it makes sense that the physicality kind of takes on a little bit more of a robotic feel than perhaps, the characterization would. And when you think about playing the role, it's such an interesting counter to Megan, who started as a hero and now kind of becomes the anti-hero in this film. When you think about your reflecting on the role, what were some of the most rewarding parts of playing the character, and then also some of the most challenging? You mentioned some of the physicality work, so I'm not sure if that was, foreign's work to you, or like, oh no, this is stuff I've been doing all the time and easy to jump into.
I don't think I ever feel like, man, I've got this, all the stunts, I'm ready to go. I just felt the biggest challenge was physicality, and that was honestly one of the most interesting parts of playing her. Also her voice itself, just the discovery of her and building her, to me was just like limitless. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, I think, um how much screen time a character gets. You can discover a scene that is like 5 minutes long and make it as depthful as you want it to be. And to me, that is a gift of discovering somebody like Amelia. I mean, um, I've learned a lot from her and learned a lot about showing up for yourself in a physical way. I mean, Mish, my trainer, and Luke, they were just incredible because they are so intuitive and lead with first and foremost understanding of your own physicality and your own body, and the way they have taught me to understand my own body, my own physicality in a deeper way was just incredibly exciting to be a part of. So, yeah.
That's so
Just answer the
cool.
question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think you mentioned something that was kind of interesting, which is that, there's certain scenes where it allows you to kind of really get in deep to the character. what scene for you was the one that's like, okay, I really, I really understood this character now? Because the first time we see Amelia, she's taking care of some pretty nasty folks. So, at what point were you like in the script, you're like, wow, this is the moment where I really get who this character is and how I'm going to show up as them.
There was like a plethora of things about Amelia in the original script that I had read, that was just so abundant for me to abundant enough in order for me to be like, yeah, I really want to get in the room with Gerard, the director. I can't wait to meet him. I just, as an actor, you sometimes feel, I hate auditioning, I'll be honest. Like, it's not one of my favorite things in the world, I'll be honest. But even when I read Amelia, I was really looking forward to actually playing around with her and wanted to get into the room and sort of have a go at the scenes. But I think that the tunnel scene with Megan when I was reading it really moved me. And especially towards the end, I mean, I don't want to give you any spoilers for anybody who
Right.
has seen the movie, but towards the end, when she is seeking what she's seeking, uh, that was moving to me. Yeah.
And she's a pretty sympathetic character. I mean, even though she's not playing the quote unquote good person in this, there is a lot I think people can understand about where she comes from, particularly given she kind of cut from the same cloth as Megan, that they both share that sense of, I didn't ask to be here, but now I am, and you're trying to hold me back. What gives?
Mm.
And I had read in another interview, you can confirm this is true, that you were not a big fan of horror films. So you hadn't seen Megan up until kind of getting a chance to see the second one. But would you consider yourself more of a fan of them now, even though, Megan 2.0 kind of touches the horror genre, doesn't so much live in it as far as the first one does? So would you say you've become a little bit of a convert? Or are you still not a big fan of horror films?
My nervous system remains to be gentle, but I do continuously grow really appreciation for horror films. I think it's one of the best genres. I really do, and creating one is different from watching one. But
Right.
um, I think there's like such a world to explore and reflect on the world through horror genre. I hope to build a little bit more of resilience towards being able to watch horror films. I have some of the ones that I'd seen. Some of my favorite films are horror films, but it's only when I get the chance to actually sit myself down and not think that my world is about to come to an end because I'm now a part
Right.
of the movie and everything that is happening in the film is part of my life, So, yeah, I continuously build appreciation for horror films.
Well, you've done quite a bit of work in genre as it is, so I think that it's always great to see actors showing up in roles that they're in genre films. Particularly, we mentioned Pacific Rim, which was Uprising, which was so much fun. And my last question for you, we don't know whether or not there will be another Megan film. We don't know whether or not we think we know Amelia's fate is sealed, but if there were to be another film, do you think we would see Amelia in it? And if so, how would you like her to show up?
Um, I don't have an answer whether or not we would see Amelia in it, obviously, because it's that question is should be directed to the creators. But I mean, if there were to be another Megan film, I would love to see her in it. I think there is enough room for her to explore on screen, and where she would go. I don't know, man. The world is her oyster, so it depends. I feel very careful about, creating storylines that are not part of this reality. But I think there's many ways that you could go. It could be deeper into destruction or actually empathy.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to have Megan and Amelia team up to almost become like a crime-fighting duo of AI
Yeah.
robots. So, the world is Blumhouse's oyster, I would imagine. So hopefully, we'll get another Megan film out there and hopefully you get asked to reprise the role. But Ivana, I just want to say thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us today and to remind everyone that's watching this that you can get Megan 2.0 on VOD now. And if you're like me, you like to have something physical to hold on to and touch, you can wait until September 23rd and grab it on 4K and Blu-ray. So thank you, Ivana, and look forward to whatever you're working on next.
Matt, thank you so much for speaking with me. Have a good one.
My pleasure. All right. Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am so excited because I'm joined today by none other than the voice of M3GAN. That's right, we have Jenna Davis with us today, who is an American actress, singer, songwriter, producer, dancer, social media influencer, who a lot of our folks might know from your role as Kylie in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but also as your role as M3GAN in both the first film and the second one. So thank you so much for taking some time to speak today, Jenna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Well, I know we don't have too much time, so I'm going to dive right into some questions. The first one is, though, at what point were you did you have this moment where you're like, I think Megan's going to be an icon?
I think after the first film, when people started asking me in public to do her voice for them, that was a very shocking but exciting and surreal feeling because so many people would say, "Oh, that's the M3GAN girl." And I'm like, "Huh?" Like, or they heard my voice, they'd hear my voice and they'd be like, I just heard that." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, no way." And I think to be recognized, I got recognized as the character very quickly, and that was very cool. And I think it's something that with my voice just being something that I use all the time, for people to recognize that even in public settings was a pretty surreal feeling. I think also with our opening weekend in the box office, I never really understood that prior because it had only been my second film in theaters. I didn't really understand, and I realized, "Oh my goodness, like so many people went to see it even in the first weekend, and this is a completely new film." I think that just felt very insane. M3GAN has a line in the first film. She goes, "It's insane, right?" And I think the whole film and just the whole experience with the franchise thus far has been truly so insane. So, yeah, I think I was so nervous walking into it, especially being a new villain surrounded by such iconic villains from both Universal and Blumhouse, that I was just very thankful that the horror community accepted me, but also really, really loved M3GAN as much as I did. So that was just the coolest feeling and still really is.
Yeah, it is very much kind of a once in a I want to say maybe lifetime is maybe not the best word, but the word that's coming to mind because we don't get horror icons that often. We get a lot of horror movies, but the characters and the villains that emerge from, or in this case, the heel turn from, villain to anti-hero, we just don't get those characters that often that kind of make waves. So so happy for you and the character, but also just for what this has done for gaining more exposure to horror. And, as the voice of M3GAN, I'm always curious to understand like how much involvement you have in regards to being on set with the shoot versus having to do the voiceover in the sound booth after. How does this, impact the way you cultivate relationships with the rest of the cast that you work with?
It definitely makes it a bit more difficult since I am not on set. I Most of my work is done in the vocal booth. For the second film, it was nice because I was able to be involved in the beginning, middle, and end versus in the first film, I was casted pretty late on. So I it was just a different experience this time because they got to use my voice on set, and I also got to experience the different stages of, oh, this is prior to filming, this is during filming, this is after filming. And so that was really a treat. But it does make it a little bit more difficult for me to interact with the other cast since I'm obviously not on set. But truly, Allison Williams has been such a gem, and she is always in communication with me, reaching out, making sure I'm okay, also ensuring that, hey, I listened to this, you did a great job, super complimentary and kind. So I've been able to definitely formulate a relationship with her and also Violet because we've been able to do some horror conventions together, and then also just being two young actresses in Hollywood, we kind of can run in the same circles as well. And her family is just lovely. So through that, I mean, we've been able to interact and see one another, but it does make it more difficult and very unorthodox and non-traditional in that sense because I'm kind of a loner in the booth.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I can understand that. I think there's, I think from the viewer's perspective, we don't often think about, how the film gets made. But It is so interesting that, there is such this kind of profound impact you have as the voice, even though you're not, always going to physically be there. But it's nice to hear that there was kind of some relationship building that happened, outside of that, so that you can get to know your castmates a little better and start to build those connections that, are could hopefully or last forever. And I know you do have done work both kind of in the sound booth as well as kind of in front of the camera. So do you find that voiceover work presents kind of anything more difficult than in person, or do you find that in person's more difficult, or are they just different and how?
I would say they're different. I think voiceover can be a bit more challenging in the sense that you're not having another human to bounce off of. For me personally, I love human interaction and I love the ability to create connection and chemistry with the people that I work with. Whenever I do book a job, I always encourage me and the other cast members to go grab some coffee, get to know one another, because I do feel as though people can read authenticity and they can read whether or not you have a genuine relationship with someone or not. So, I think for me, it has been challenging in a sense because I don't have that human interaction, but it's also been a really great challenge. And I think it's enabled me to kind of go back to that childlike imagination that we lose as adults, where you have to really see yourself in a new reality and make sure it's believable. And so, in that sense, I felt kind of like a kid again of having to really dive deep into this imaginative world that I can't physically touch. I just have to see and imagine, especially for the second film. A lot of my work was done prior to filming, so I had nothing
Oh,
on the
wow.
screen. I had nothing on the screen to see or watch. I just had to imagine, based on the page, what this was going to look like. And so for me, it was really thrilling to I didn't see the final of the film till the premiere, and so that was really thrilling for me to see how everything really came to life. I came in the middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and so I was able to see some pieces of footage, but primarily a lot of my work was just, okay, well, we're just gonna have to see, we're just gonna have to imagine what this looks like in my head, and so I think that was a really fun challenge. So I don't know if one is easier than the other because I do definitely think that some on-camera work and can be so incredibly challenging, but can also be just as difficult as voiceover. But I think for me personally, with what I've worked on this far, I think voiceover is the most challenging just because I just crave human interaction and I love being able to work with people and bounce off of them.
Yeah, I could appreciate the difference, right? And I think it's even more impressive that you didn't have kind of like an image to work off of when you were doing the voiceover for M3GAN 2.0. So kudos to you on that one.
Thank you.
And I know that you aren't just the voice of M3GAN. You also are a country music singer. So I'm wondering, are we going to get some sort of M3GAN, crossover with your country music career at any point?
I think that would be really special and cool. I think with Megan particularly, she specializes in covers. So, you never know. Maybe if we get a third film, we'll bust out a Dolly Parton Jolene moment. I really would not be opposed to that. But I think it just depends on where Megan's legacy goes and, if that continues and where she will land. I think, I'd love that. I love to incorporate Megan into any part of music or whatnot. I always say I'm like, we should create her a little soundtrack of some sort because she just loves to bust out into song as anybody else. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I would
Yeah, I
love
mean,
that though. I agree. I second that.
yeah, we'll have to get an album like, the now that's what I call music with the M3GAN hits though.
Oh,
So
I love that idea.
well, Jenna, I just want to say thank you so much for the time that you've
Thank
shared with us
you.
today, and thank you for your answers. And just to remind everyone that's listening to this, that you can actually get M3GAN 2.0 now on Prime on VOD. If you're one of those folks like myself who loves physical media, you can grab yourself a copy on September 23rd of this year. And Jenna, congratulations on not just this film, but all the work I'm sure you'll be doing in the future.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here.